Oh, hey everyone. Hey
Are we
everyone.
recording? Are we recording, Sony?
I am actually recording now. This
Okay,
is what
good.
happens when you start a podcast for the first time. You
Definitely.
you do 40 minutes of it and then you realize that you didn't press record. So, we had a really great episode that none of you got to hear. Milton and James really got into it. And then 40 minutes into our podcast episode, your host, yours truly, realized that he, in fact, did not press the red record button. So,
But I think this, if I could say one thing, this is what we're talking about with grace, right? We're not going to
That's
put
it.
you on social media. We're not going to
Nah.
blast you. We're not going
Right.
to talk about your capabilities as a host. We're going to show some empathy. We're going to say, man, stuff happens. It's the way of the world. We're
For
humans.
sure. For sure.
The world is going to keep spinning, you know.
Definitely.
So that's actually a good precursor to what we're trying to why we're doing this. We're trying to bridge that gap. So nothing but love. Nothing but love.
I'm not going to get fined.
No fine.
No fine. No fine.
Wow, this is a pretty good deal. But I still feel terrible about that. But onward and forward, we appreciate you checking out this new podcast called Court Views. I
For
am your
sure.
host. I'm your host for now, Sony Tawari, co-founder and CEO at Ref Masters, doing the host job, not pressing the record button, but
Yeah.
we
I
live
heard
and we
Pat
learn.
Sajak's retiring, so maybe we'll go get Pat, somebody like that.
I am really excited to be here for this new podcast, a joint venture between MDW Basketball and Ref Masters. Above me to my left is Milton, and above me to my right is James. Milton, a quick intro to yourself
Yep.
and what
Yep.
brought you here.
I'm Milton Chavis, CEO of MDW Basketball. I played collegiate basketball at Morehead State University. Then I played overseas in the UK. I played in Luxembourg, France, and Germany area before I started my company back in December of 2015. And fast forward a bit, I discovered or came across the gather step rule, and I just started creating concepts, just having fun with it, and it created a life of its own. But I think as the time progressed, I wanted to continue to learn myself. I think a lot of us would agree with me. You're never really a finished product, and I feel like I'm always learning every day. And I wanted to share whatever knowledge that I was getting and whatever I was studying with the world. And it kind of caught fire, and now we're here.
Love it. We're so happy that you're here, and we have been big fans of your content for a while now. So,
Thank
really
you.
excited about what we're looking to bring here. James, quick background about yourself.
Yeah, James Williams, but everybody calls me Gucci now since I'm his twin. I will say I'm a year older than Gucci, so I guess I'm the original. Maybe he came after. I don't know, but in my 14th season in the NBA, started refereeing basketball when I was a freshman at Purdue back in '97. So been refereeing basketball for 27 years roughly, and worked my way up the ladder after I graduated. Small college, um, up to the SEC, WNBA, NBA. So in my 14th year, that's almost coming to a close. The season's almost over. So yeah, and work with you and Kane and some others with Ref Masters, this platform to try to help referees learn more about their craft, help them grow, learn, become better referees on the floor. So we're excited about that particular aspect of what we're doing, and we're certainly excited about just trying to bridge the gap between people who enjoy the game, certainly players and coaches, to try to give them a different perspective, give them more information about plays, how referees referee the game, or not referee the game, but how they see plays, what are they looking at, things like that.
Awesome. And we took quite a bit of time to arrive at this title for the podcast, Court Views. It's really
Yep.
hard. Those of you that have ever put on a podcast. It's hard to find a podcast name that hasn't already been taken.
Right.
That is a real challenge. But we landed on Court Views, which we really like. Milton, can you tell us a little bit about what that name Court Views means to you?
To me, it means, just different aspects of the game and different minds and from different perspectives, all coming together just to have a conversation. Trying to get a better understanding of each other. Like James always says, trying to have more empathy for one another, and just continuing to learn and grow from different perspectives. I think is really dope, especially from a player's perspective. Skill development coach as well, but I was a player first for most of my life, and an official, and kind of bridging the gap between those relationships as well.
Love it. And as I mentioned before, we already recorded 40 minutes of this podcast without me actually pressing the record button, but we're going to look at some of those plays plus some plays that we haven't looked at yet. We want you to tell us which plays James and Milton have already talked about and are talking about for the second time. See if you can figure that out, because I'm not going to do this in the same order. I'm going to do this in a different order. So we're going to look at some new stuff. We're going to look at some stuff that is not as new to the both of you. This was a play that happened recently against the Lakers just a couple of nights ago, and there was a lot of conversation about whether he traveled here. And wanted to ask you both to break this down. Milton, let's start with you.
From my viewpoint, and from the angles that I was able to grab video from, it looks to me like he caught the ball with both feet down. He lifted his right foot, and he chose his left foot as his pivot foot. And just before that pivot foot comes off the floor, I believe he released the ball from his hand.
Right there. It looks maybe like a split second, because it did
Split
look
second before.
like maybe a travel to me, but then when you broke it down in slow-mo, it looked like that ball might have gotten to the floor right before he lifted that leg right there.
Just
His toe
before.
still down.
Just before. And I think what threw people off here too is how he shifted his weight to his left side. And then he went back right to start his dribble. But I think he just got it off in time, especially in real time. I think it would be hard to definitively say that was a travel.
What say you, James? What are you looking for when you see a play like this?
So you're looking for, as a referee, when a player catches the ball, we want to take our eyes to his or her feet, and we want to stay on those feet until the release of the ball. So here he's establishing the left as his pivot. You have to determine, does he hold that foot on the floor until he releases the ball? And it's close. It's very close. That's the determining factor, is the ball out before the pivot moves. It looks that way. I'd have to see other angles. That's how close it is.
Yeah.
But I think what really throws people off is the cadence of it all.
Yep.
That's what throws people off and immediately gets people to go to travel, is this just the rhythm, the cadence of the play. So yeah, as it relates to officials, we take our eyes to the feet. So on the catch, it's like, all right, right now he's got options. All right, right now he's made it to the left. And now I have to determine, does he release the ball before the left foot moves? That's what I'm judging. And that's the decision you have to make. It's very close.
That's a tough play, man.
Yeah, it's interesting because it looks like it wasn't a deliberate play. It looks like he changed his mind and decided he wanted to go left. But James, there's another concept that I think you as a referee, you think about, which is no guessing, right?
Yep.
And talk to us about that. Talk to us about, as an official in this position, the decision to not make a call if you're not sure, and how incorrect calls versus incorrect no calls can be viewed a little differently.
Yes. So, as it relates to officiating, you want to minimize guessing on the floor. And I won't say you'll forever, eliminate it. That's not possible. But you want, to the best of your ability, not to guess on plays, because guessing means we're not really mechanically sound or disciplined. You want to know that the violations or fouls you're calling are accurate. So if you don't know, the best thing to do is to do nothing, to not guess, right? And then what we would do is we would go back and look at it, and now it's like, okay, why did I not know the answer to this particular play? Did I not take my eyes to the feet? Did I take my eyes to the defender too quickly? You're trying to figure out where the breakdown in the mechanics came if you got something wrong, so that
Yeah.
you can make adjustments. And so the next time you're out there, you're going to make those adjustments so that hopefully you get better at calling these plays, or not calling them if they're legal. So, the game is so fast, you just don't want to guess. Guessing is not a really good strategy to being an effective referee or umpire. We get paid to know. So, to the best of our abilities, we're going to try to make sure we are mechanically sound and disciplined so that we do know. In those instances where we don't know, the thing is better not to guess. And maybe there's someone else on the crew who may have a look that can help you. And if that is the case, great. If not, sometimes the game beats you, and you have to live and die with the no call. And if the no call is incorrect, then again, go back to the tape, mechanically see what I did right or wrong, and then make those adjustments so that I can hopefully not make that same mistake the next time that play is presented to me.
Yeah.
And Milton, as a trainer now, someone that really works on developing skills for
Mm-hmm.
ball players, talk to me about the triple threat position, about how
Yeah.
much attention do you have here? This has obviously evolved. There's a lot more options, I would say, players are aware of in terms of how they could use this position. This, of
Mm-hmm.
course, triple threat is something that those of us that have played hoops for a while, from way back in the day, it's been talked about for a long time. But yeah, I think this is an area that's kind of evolving. Would be interested to get your thoughts on how you train players these days.
So I usually, as much as I can, like to train players to catch the ball with both feet on the floor, so they can choose either foot to be pivot. And I prefer a cross step rip through, especially when you're moving really fast. Like if Giannis swung his right foot over it and drove baseline here, that's usually how I teach it. For the most part, I feel like that'll help you. If you want to catch and you want to split catch and you want to go, I think that's one of the most efficient ways. And just being mindful of your pivot foot, understanding that that ball needs to be released from your hand. And really, how I teach it is that I want the ball to hit the floor before. So I want you to kind of over exaggerate it, just so you leave no room for a travel on those plays. But yeah, it's tricky. I think more times than not, it's hard to catch those, but more times than not, I feel like, open step rip throughs where, let's say I have the basketball and I choose my left foot as pivot and I attack to the right side of the floor and I rip the ball from left side to right side. A lot of times before I release the ball to start my dribble, that foot comes off the floor. So I'm really a stickler in the gym about that. And
That's
they call
cool.
it a lot on the high school level.
Yeah.
If you're moving fast, they call it a lot on the high school level.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And the idea of that cross step with the right, I guess, kind of
Yeah.
getting inside position on that drive,
Yep.
kind of sealing off the defender from the angle,
Yep. Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. With all the talk on this play about the footwork and whether it was a travel or not, there was also a foul call on this play.
Mm-hmm.
I think a pretty clear and obvious one. it looks like is that Spencer Dinwiddie there on the reach. James, from an officiating perspective, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the coverage here. Which official has coverage on this play, and just talk us through the process of making this call and getting it right the way that they do here.
Yeah, so on this play, it's the ball's on the well, in the NBA, it's called the strong side where the ball's located. And on this particular play, there is no lead on that side of the floor. The lead is the official on the baseline. So the slot, the one that's at the free throw line extended, is really kind of what we call on an island by himself. He's responsible for this play, and there's not a lot of help he can get from the other two officials. So his job is to referee the feet until the ball is released, and then immediately take his eyes to the defender. So we go with catch, get to the feet of the offensive player. Once the offensive player releases the ball, we want to referee the defender. And what that means is basically referee the defender's hands. So we are looking at the hands of whoever's on defense, and you're looking at those hands to see if those hands create any illegal contact. And so this is a play where it's clearly just the slot official who's responsible for all of this. The other two are going to be looking off ball. So this is why when plays are on one side of the floor like they are here, it's not three people out there looking at it. It's really
Right.
just
Yeah.
and without much help from anyone else, because the other two have their own responsibilities that they are responsible for. Especially if this offensive player is able to get around the primary defender, get to the rim, there's going to be a help defender. You see Torian there on the dig, and then you see
Hayes.
who is this? Jackson came over. So you have two other defenders who are also going to be in the mix if this foul isn't called. If
Right.
that foul is called, you have one defender there and then the other defender at the rim. So help is needed from the other officials as it relates to the help defenders.
All right, let's look at another play, this one from college. And we talk a lot about on these what we can do with our two steps. How much of a hop is still legal? And I think now I know the answer to that. There's no limit to the hop here, I think, right?
Yeah.
When you say limit, when you say limit to the hop,
Some people
what
would
do you
say,
mean?
well, he took a jump there, so that's a violation. He's not allowed to jump on that hop. But as far as I can tell, if he's not jumping up to take a shot, he's just kind of it's like a hop step. I assume now that's a legal play he can make, right?
Yes. Oh, we're talking about the one. I was waiting to see if that play is coming back
Sorry,
up.
I can run it back. It's coming back
Oh,
in a second. I think this is just to show some of the uh, content that Milton has created that is relevant to this
Yeah.
type of play.
Yeah.
yeah. This is legal. I can't speak to how they count steps in college. I'm not 100% certain about that. But in the NBA, they gather on that left. He gathers the ball there on his left, so that's step 0. So essentially, he's only taken one step here, which is the
Yeah.
right there. One, and then he goes up, and he goes off up on the wrong leg and all that stuff, which makes it look weird, right? That makes it look like that's funky. But I think, okay, so it says there step 2. So I think that's how college rules it. When you gather the ball, that's step 1, step 2, and you go up. So in the NBA, that would be considered taking one step, what he did,
Yeah.
and legal.
Yeah. In college, that would be step 2. So the first when he ended the dribble, since they technically, well, they've refined the rules a bit on Euro steps, on step backs, and spin move plays. So they're inclined to not call those, but they haven't officially added a gather step to the rule book. But yeah, this is definitely legal on that level as well.
I thought this was such a great play because And people that don't really play hoops a lot may not realize how challenging it is to bring that much
Yeah,
force horizontally in
that's
control.
tough, man.
Yeah.
And I tried to do it after in the gym. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
tough.
not easy right there.
He covers a lot of ground in control because we're used to
Yeah.
it's the amount of force that in the past players would only really reserve for jumping up, but
Yeah.
he's bringing it forward and then he's going up and it's all in control. And like you said, James, he's launching off the right foot with the right hand, so it's a little unorthodox as well.
Yeah.
So really cold play. I love it.
Yeah. I really like. The more I watch basketball, the more I study, the more I create things. I kind of wonder like why are certain things unorthodox? I feel like if it's in the guidelines of the rules, it's just a legal basketball play. I think I understand, what things look like and how that plays a part into it as well. But I think, based off the rules, it just is what it is. I think the we're not gonna see like we're gonna keep seeing, things being created, new things being done. So like at once, maybe, some years ago, this would have been unorthodox, or a regular Euro step would have been unorthodox, or Steph Curry shooting from half court would be unorthodox. I just feel like the game is going to continue to grow and evolve. I just think that it's just a basketball play.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's me sounding like an old man now.
Oh no,
Talking
I'm just saying just in general because
about
I hear people saying, and not even just unorthodox. I'll just say if something looks weird to someone,
yeah.
or the cadence is off, or like it's like automatically a travel, and that's just not the case. I just think, if it's done within the guidelines of the rules, it's just a legal basketball play at the end of the day. That's
That's
kind
good.
of how I started to view basketball, as I started to create and just think about it and watch it more. And, watching guys like Shea Gilgeous Alexander, watching guys like, Anthony Edwards last night did a really tough pivot move around the nail of the free throw line. I just think, yeah, the game is just growing.
You talked about pushing the boundaries
Yeah,
and of what's legal and what's not, and getting in that
yeah,
gray area. Here's a
yeah,
play from Hezigod, who often likes to push the boundaries and get us to question what's legal and what's not.
yeah,
Where on a loose ball, he continues to tap it to himself all the way down the short LA Fitness gym
yeah,
for an easy layup.
yeah,
And this one really, I was curious about this, Milton.
yeah. Hmm.
This looks like a violation.
Yeah.
James, your perspective on this is?
Yeah, this is definitely a dribble violation. I'm kidding.
I was
Wait,
sitting
what?
here like,
That was good.
So then, tell me, this is
I'm used.
not a drip. This is not a violation.
Yeah, so that said, this is not a fumble. This is what it's not. Is it's not possession. It's not control. So you're
right,
allowed to tap the ball as many times as you want. There's no rule on how many times you can tap the ball unless we're talking about a jump ball. Then that's something totally different. But this is not a jump ball. This is just going down the floor. And how I try to explain this to players and coaches when they ask about this, we do get this a lot because when inevitably people are tapping the ball and then they're taking all these steps, people think it should be a travel. And like there's a signal where we do this, it's like he's bobbling the ball or she doesn't have control is what we're saying.
hmm,
So if as he's bobbling that ball or tapping it, if every time he's tapping it, he's like timeout, 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 we can't grant him a timeout because he doesn't have control of the ball. He's
right,
tapping it, and taps are allowed. Taps are not considered possession. And so no rule takes effect until he has clear possession of the ball, no travel rule. And so once he clearly grabs the balls, then all the rules about traveling and what you can do and can't do, that's when that takes effect. Now he dribbles, gathers, and goes up. So this
yeah.
is a legal play.
So there's no instance where these taps either of those taps or any tap at all would be enough control to deem it actually being like in his control.
Correct. You know what makes this play looks again, he's tapping it, but there's no one really around him. So let's
Right.
put two defenders around him as he's doing this tap, tap, tap. We might see that play a little different. Like he's trying to get it out of a congested area. He's trying to get it. Dennis Rodman used to do this all the time, right? Tap, 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 tap. Taps are legal, and no steps count. You don't have possession. Let's say, let me see. Let's say this is off of a rebound, and we have a shot clock. I think the shot clock in college for men, I believe, is 30. I think that's what it is.
Yes.
So let's say off of the rebound here, he just starts tapping. That clock, the shot clock, should not start until he gets clear possession of the ball. So he can go the length of the floor on the rebound tapping, and that shot clock should stay at 30 because he never possesses the ball until right now. Now the shot clock should start.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me to understand until you gave these examples.
For
When
sure.
you give the example of what is the at the table, what does the shot clock operator do, or if the individual tries to call a timeout, that makes it very clear, I think, the nature of whether possession has happened or not. So I
Right.
like that. That's helpful. I will say, you talked about the lack of defense. Come on, LA Fitness people. Do better. Come on. Come on now.
Literally, that is zero defense, bro.
Come on.
Zero.
If you're in the gym with Hezigod, you've got to figure that there's a very good chance that anything with him doing on the court is going to end up being on social media and seen by a lot of people. So just keep that in mind. And then also, you're going to have folks like James and Milton talking about it as well. So be better.
Sure. And other officials, I asked another official about this too, another NBA official, and like James always says, everybody has a different viewpoint on different plays. And
Yeah.
I was told it was a travel or a dribble violation.
Yeah. I have this as illegal because he's
Yeah.
just tapping the ball, and
Sure.
taps have no bearing on travels or
For sure.
dribbling
Yeah.
because you're not dribbling the ball, you're tapping it.
Right.
You don't have clear possession until now, and now that's a dribble. Now that's a gather. Legal step. Legal.
While we're on the theme of tapping, we've got a play here. Milton, you shared this newest creation with the world pretty recently. And as
Yeah.
you know, I name your plays because I have to name these files something because I got a lot of Milton
Right.
plays
Yeah.
on my library now. And I named this play the Milton Tip Tap Board Bap. That's the name of the play for now. And yeah, this one is really, really difficult. The tip tap, as I call it. What kind of reactions are you getting from folks on this?
Typical, man. I think, well, for my core fan base or my core following, I wouldn't call them fans. They kind of just hang on to whatever I say. So it's like I wanted to throw something in there just to see if you really are paying attention to the actual rules of the game, or are you just agreeing with me because how much work I put into it and that I, ask officials and send it to different officials before and to get it clear before I even post. So it's just a conversation piece right here. I saw something close to this being done, and I just put my twist on it. It created a pretty good discussion among the people.
So James, when you see this, what do you make of it?
Well, when I start seeing people do this in a game, that's when I know it's my time to retire. Because clearly the game has passed me by. I just I don't even know what to tell you. Like in live speed and this is obviously in the gym by himself, but I don't even know live. Like it's all about right there, really, on as he spins and he taps the ball there, and then he gets it. This all of this that's easy, throwing it off the backboard, but it's all about. I guess it's not a gather until this is like I'm just tapping it to myself. I'd have to, what I would do, and I'll tell you what we do as NBA referees is we would ask our colleagues, like just like lawyers or judges would ask, "What's your interpretation of this law here? How do you see
Yep.
this?"
Yep.
Yep.
I would ask my colleagues, like, How do you see this? What
Right.
is this legal or not? Because I am not 100% sure if one way or the
Yep.
other if it is or not. So I would ask my colleagues and
Yep.
let them kind of help me see this play because, like looking at this, I'm like, for me, it's the tap and he grabs it, but then he goes up, which is my gut tells me it's legal, but I would have to ask some of my colleagues to give me their interpretation because that's really funky.
For sure. Yeah, this one is spicy for sure.
Yeah, spicy is a good word.
Spicy.
It's that tip tap in the beginning, that tap to himself. That's the I think the part that we're really in the gray about right now, and the nature of that.
Definitely.
I think if James, if that was ruled a fumble, say there was a defender and it looked like it had kind of gotten away, then I think it would be more clearly legal. But
Yep.
in absence of that, it's a little gray. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Fumbles or someone is trying to make a move, or sometimes players when they go up, the ball slips out of their hands. You are legally allowed to go and retrieve that ball, but then you must pass or shoot.
Yep.
And that's what he does. If we were to deem this a fumble, and then when he gets it back, he just goes up, legal play. But that's again, are you determining this as a fumble or is it not a fumble? Is he kind of passing it to himself? And then you have to make a decision off of that too.
No.
But again, when it gets that hard, I'm out of here.
So Milton, it's like you're creating a new asset, a new class of plays.
Yeah.
Of maybe you make a play where instead of it looking like you're under control and it's all deliberate, you're actually obfuscating
Yeah.
whether this is intentional or not.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting future there, huh?
Definitely. Definitely.
I'd be pretty good at those. I can make a lot of plays look like mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's maybe there's a future for hoopers like me.
There you go.
Let's look at this play.
Mm.
And Milton, you've done some content, I think, that's relevant to the point under question here, whether
Yeah.
this can travel. My understanding is that, like, and I've had people at the gym ask me about plays like this recently, is prior to him gathering the ball to go up to shoot,
Mm-hmm.
he could take as many steps as he wants between a dribble.
Yeah.
So those steps are basically fine
Yeah.
because he doesn't bring his palm under the ball, right? He's
Yeah.
keeping it up
Yep.
here.
Definitely.
James, does that line up with your interpretation of this play, or do you see it differently?
Well, I'm going to reiterate. When it gets this hard, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. So his hands on top of the ball, and that's when he's taking his steps in between the dribbles.
Yeah.
That's great.
We always look at it through a lens of like where you normally see this is when people's hand get underneath the ball and then they take dribbles,
Yeah.
they take steps and
Yeah.
they put it back down. That's a clear carrying violation. What throws a wrench in this one as he's keeping his hand on top of the ball.
Yep.
Again, I would have to ask my colleagues because I am not 100%. I don't want to say this is legal because I'm not 100% sure. Hands on top of the ball. And it's almost like, can it be considered that the ball comes to a rest even though your hand's on top of it? If I think the ball's coming to a rest even though my hand's on top,
Yeah.
all those steps would then count. It's almost like we're saying that's when the dribble ends.
Yeah. But in
And
this
so like
case,
right
though,
there to me, it's like the dribble ends. Like as he's coming back, it's like he's kind of got it where, because otherwise the ball should be dribbling, right? It's like he's got it to a point where why is the ball not going back down?
Right. What I've learned and
He's got a hand on it.
how I actually do these moves is that you dribble the ball so hard that it just rotates in your hand, and that's what's
Okay, so
happening on
you're
my
having it. So the
plays.
ball's like rotating
It's just
here,
rotating in my hand. Yep.
not
But it's
not
a
like you've
hard
actually
bounce though.
not like you've
Yeah.
actually grasped it.
Oh nah. My hands are big. That's tough to do though. But yeah, it's a hard bounce, and then that ball just rotates
yeah,
in your hand. And I think
yeah,
uh
Interesting.
what how can I say this? Um it's very similar to like 90s when they used to do the little stutter step. They'll take a dribble and let the ball float and take steps,
Hmm.
chopping their feet. It's just going in a different direction, and that's what throws people off. And for me, it's like uh, you don't have to put the ball down every time you take a step. So it has to be multiple steps in between each dribble.
You don't have to put the ball down every time you
So you
take a
don't you don't you don't have to dribble and step at the same time.
Agreed.
Yeah. So it's just
Well,
an
I can tell you
exaggerated version of it. Quicker,
this.
shorter steps are a lot easier um, to kind of throw you off as opposed to like if he took longer steps here, he wouldn't be able to delay it that long.
Well, I can tell you that every YMCA, every LA Fitness, and every neighborhood game, this gonna be
Yeah,
called a travel. If it ain't a
definitely.
travel, it's gonna be complaining for about 10 minutes before we get the ball back in play. So, um,
well, this is when you have the Court Views podcast on your phone. And you pull it out and you show
yeah,
your friends.
yeah. Like, see, this is what they say on court views, and it's like, well, I'm not telling you one way or another because I'm trying to keep my credibility here, and I also try to let people know referees don't have all the answers. And so again, this is where what I'd ask my colleagues. And then when I
Yeah,
asked them, I'd say, okay, break that down for me. How
yeah,
you're breaking this play down, break it
yeah,
down for me so that I can understand it.
yeah,
Because
and
these things are happening in live speed. You got to be able to
yeah,
know quick.
yeah, and that's what I do as well. I've never put out a video that I haven't sent to every level of officials, just to get their thoughts on it, what they think about it, and all of them say per rule it's technically legal, and that's
See,
what I
for
kind of
me,
go with.
the one with you is a lot easier than this one. Like, because
Yeah,
you can see the clear gather, but this to me,
yeah,
it's almost like when the
yeah,
ball comes up in his left hand, it looks like to me like he's grasped it. Like
yeah.
if you're saying it's spinning,
Hmm.
and so if you're saying it's spinning where he really hasn't gathered it yet, then the steps don't
Yeah,
count. And
right.
then once he gets clear control of it, that's when the steps count. And
Yeah,
it's really kind of semantics, I guess. Is what
yeah.
we're talking.
His is even more exaggerated than mine. I don't even think I can move my feet that fast.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
tough.
for the betterment of society and the world that we live in, let's just call it travel.
Well, there's a difference between you said you talked about legality. There's a difference between legality and ethical. So maybe
Hmm.
this is a legal play, but maybe it's not an ethical play.
Yeah,
But how
yeah.
does that work if it's
I'm
in the
joking. I'm joking.
guidelines of the
I would have
rules?
to. I would have to ask some of my colleagues and
Yeah.
get their opinions, because
Interesting. Yep.
for me, it's I'm not 100% certain. So I would say,
Yeah.
hey, help me out with this play. What do you see
Yeah.
here? Give me the breakdown,
Yeah.
and that's how we learn as officials, because there's so many plays and different types of plays that happen in a basketball game, and what makes basketball officiating so much more difficult than any other sport in the world is there's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
There's so much gray, and that's when you have to make a decision on the gray. It's not technically a foul or a violation
Yeah.
by the rule book. It's like
Yeah.
it's right there on that line, and you're
Yeah.
having to make a judgment.
Yeah.
And that's why refereeing basketball is such a difficult sport. You're doing that in live speed.
Yeah.
So I'd reach out to colleagues and I would say, "Hey, what do you see here? How do you see this play? Do you see this as a legal play, or is this a travel?" And
Yeah.
I will let them guide me on this one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this play recently from Jordan Poole. And because I think this one is a little more clear, but it also pretty cool probably for you to see, Milton, because this is
Definitely.
stuff that you've been doing, you've been working on, you've been broadcasting to the world for a couple of years now, and to start seeing this slowly trickle into increasingly higher levels of play, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure like, yeah, that's my son.
No, it was
So
cool to see.
yeah. So one of the things here you talk about in the post is
Mm-hmm.
the reverse pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping you could clear that up for our audience that might not be familiar with what you mean when you say reverse pivot on this play here.
So basically, it's like a pivot spin on either foot. So in this case, Jordan Poole jump stop for step one, which would make which he could choose either foot to be pivot. And he could, I believe he could jump stop. He could reverse pivot going away from the basket and away from where he came from. So it's just, I think, a pivot spin in either direction with either foot after a legal jump stop. Well, a jump stop for step one, I would say.
And James, from the official's perspective, what do you look for on a play like this, with also consideration for the fact that one official can't do all of this? There's the team working together, and each member of the crew has got their own piece of the puzzle, if you will.
Right. Yep. So all three officials have to kind of work together. We all have different responsibilities on the floor. So on this particular play, this slot official, Shea, they is responsible for the legality of the defender. They is going to be watching the defender. The help for this play as it relates to the footwork and whether or not that footwork is legal has to come from the trail official. We can't even see that person, whoever the trail is on this particular play. We can't even see them in the framework. So a lot of times it's the official that's farthest away from the play who has the best look at things. And so because the slot official is going to be the slot and the lead, basically the lead is the person on the baseline there. Shout out to Fennessy. Fennessy played basketball at University of Georgia. So, he was a baller back in his day. So
Nice.
the lead and the slot official are going to be refereeing for contact by the defender. They're refereeing the defender. The help with the footwork has to come from the trail official. And so you're looking at, again, everything is all predicated on the gather. When does the dribbler pick up the ball? And that's when all the rules start to take effect. And so just like Milton said, when he picks it up and he lands on 2 feet, both feet are allowed to be his pivot. And he elects to choose the left
Yeah.
off the spin, and then he just steps through. And one thing we don't show here or see is, these are all men doing these step throughs, but it's really started in the women's game. The women
Yeah.
have been using the step through forever. And really, we're starting to see the men catch on to it more so today. But the women, the NC2A, WNBA, those ladies have been doing step throughs forever. But what confounds people is that you're stepping through and they think you're moving your pivot foot, which you are, you're lifting it, but you're shooting the ball before the pivot foot comes back down. So it's a legal play. But so shout out to all those women who've been using this great footwork forever. It's actually
Definitely.
it's actually the men who've just caught on to this and have started incorporating it in their games.
And one of the other things we wanted to ask about is the sneakers
Oh,
on
yeah.
display.
Yeah.
Do those yellow sneakers, does that make it easier for you as an official to to see if he's doing anything fishy here?
Yeah, actually it does, because of the bright, the bright colors of the shoes. That really does help me as it helps me to see what his feet are doing better. Like even in this clip, just take a look at how much harder it is to see Kobe White's feet than it is to see Jordan Poole's, because that bright green, whatever it is, it stands out so much. The sharpness and the contrast to the court makes it easier to see his footwork. So I tell people all the time, the lighting on the floor makes a huge difference as to officials and what they can see, the depth. Those courts that have what we call stage lighting, where everything around them is dark and the lights on the court itself, it's a lot easier to see plays, in my opinion. Over the years, I've noticed that it's easier to see plays because it just adds a sharpness to what you can see. This United Center doesn't have stage lighting. It's got the lighting you see in probably 90% of the arenas. But when you have that lighting where everything around the court is dark and only the court is lit up, it really helps as an official to see plays better.
Milton, I'm going to start keeping my eye out for these plays. When I see travels, I'm going to take a mental note of what color sneakers the person is wearing when they get called for a travel.
For sure.
I'm actually super interested to see if there's any correlation, any data
Yeah.
there.
The brighter
for
your
sure.
shoes, the more you don't get called for travels, or the brighter your shoes, the more you do because they can see better.
I think it's the latter. I think the brighter, the more that the sneakers stand out, the more likely you are going to be called for a travel when you do travel.
I agree, because now it's like you're helping the referee out. Like, oh, you're helping those eyes see a little more clearly whether your footwork is good or not.
All right, let's look at another play here, a FIBA play. And the question here, I've wondered this before. So if the ball goes through the rim but does not complete its journey through the net, it's not ruled a basket. Is that right, Milton?
Not rule the basket. It has to pass through the net, the rim and the net.
So then the follow-up question is, James, is this treated as a missed shot or is this treated as a violation?
Yeah, it's a missed shot and a violation. So I was trying to see, but I guess the clip doesn't continue on this, if they continued playing or not. When the ball came back up, they did continue playing. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. And
But
it looks like, look at number 5. He really believed that the basket was
yeah,
good.
yeah. He's like, yeah, it's
He's
2
like,
points.
He's like, yeah, that's a bucket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bucket. Yeah, no, yeah, it's that's offensive basket interference. So what he does is he makes the ball make an unnatural bounce and it comes back up through without completely clearing the net. So
Yeah.
that's a violation at all levels, even at FIBA, where in FIBA you can go and knock the ball out once it hits the rim and all that stuff. That's legal.
That
But
is my favorite rule. That's one of my
yeah,
favorite rules. I wish they had that in the NBA. It would be crazy.
it would be anarchy. Once that ball is missed, then you got all those people up there swipe. I guess it would make our lives a lot easier because now we don't have
It
to
would.
determine if the ball's in the cylinder
Right.
using the rim as his lower base, all these things that go into the basket interference rule.
It'll
And
be a
there's a
lot
lot
more
that
shots.
goes into that. So all of that would be eliminated.
Yeah.
Once that ball hits, it's like free game. Anybody
Yeah.
can come and swipe it out. But yeah, this is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sony.
I can think of a few people that would make millions and millions of dollars. They would get much bigger contracts than they currently have if that rule was changed.
I want to see it so bad. That's one of the rules I want to be incorporated into the NBA.
Yeah,
I think it's
FIBA's had
cool.
that rule for a long time,
Yeah.
but
Long time.
FIBA's the only one that has it. Like,
Yeah, only
I
one.
mean, as far as I can think of, is like in America, you think about NC2A,
Yeah.
and NFHS, and the
Yeah.
NBA are the three governing bodies mostly.
Yeah.
Nobody has that here.
Nope.
I want to say, I believe the D League, the G League experimented with it at some point in the past because they used the league to experiment with new rules or different concepts.
Yeah.
I believe they tried it in the G League years ago, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. I don't know what came of it.
Yeah.
But I do think from an official standpoint, it would make our lives easier if once that ball. Listen, you still have goaltending if you hit it on the way down, right? That
Right.
would still apply.
Yeah.
But once the ball hits the rim, all bets are off.
You
If it
literally
doesn't,
could block a game-winning free throw.
yeah. If you have a free throw bounces up there, once
Yep.
it bounces, you just knock it off.
Oh my
That would
goodness.
be crazy.
That's crazy. To me, it's crazy, but it's because we don't play with that rule.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
just like with anything else, you would get used to it, and
Yeah.
not only that, but now you force players to, I mean, you gotta. It's either
It's
switch, or you're in harm's way of that thing being knocked out of there. So, I don't know.
So while we're on the subject of international play, and you said it would be anarchy, this was a crazy play. Okay, and it's funny. Point of note here: when I sent out the list of plays that we would look at for this podcast today, I did get a message back from James. Sony, are we sure we want to look at this play? We want to look at real basketball because we want to be a serious thing. And then, of course,
Yeah.
in true Sony fashion, I had an email with like my 4 bullet points of why I think this play is something we should at least give a shot. And
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the things I really liked here, Milton, when you posted this a few weeks ago, or maybe a week or
Mhm.
two ago, was
Mhm.
I really liked how you took it seriously and you said,
Yeah.
okay, this is obviously no way, as you wrote
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this is what would need to be different for this to be a legal play. If there were a couple
Yeah.
adjustments made, so
Yeah.
talk to us about that. What adjustments would be made here for this to actually be a legal play?
That would be the gather foot. That would be step one. If he landed on both feet at the same time here and went up to finish, that could have been legal.
Explain to me the
But he
gather
would
foot
literally.
part of
Hold
this.
on. Let me see the beginning again. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me see when he ended the dribble. Man, that joint looks so crazy. So he literally would have to
Right
end
there.
the dribble with that back foot on the floor. Then that would be step one. Then land on both feet simultaneously here, and it could have been legal. But man, I don't know how you would do that. That's not one I'm trying. That is not one I'm trying. That's
Right there.
insane. And the fact that this is a game and he tried that is crazy.
Yeah. That's interesting. Again, I'm going to revert back to what I said earlier. When it gets to this, I'm out.
It won't.
I'm
won't.
retiring.
It won't get to this.
I am retiring, and I'll let the next generation of referees deal with this while I
No.
sit in my recliner and just get fat.
Well, yeah, it's clearly not a legal play, but I did
Yeah.
think the idea of
the fact that he did it
adjustment-
during the game is weird.
What are you saying, James?
I said the fact that he did this during the game to me is like, that's crazy.
And look at the guy in the white shirt like this.
Yeah. That's great. And I was going to say, I mean, seeing I would really hope that they're. Well, I mean, I was going to say I'd hope they're up by 20, but if you're up by 20, you don't really want to be doing
Yeah, that's
somersaults in the air on
Nah,
fast breaks. That's
nah,
really
yeah,
not good
that's
sportsmanship.
nah,
yeah, that's
There's
nah,
right.
really no context in which this is good because if you're down 20, you don't want to be doing this play either.
nah, nah.
I remember there
I
was
don't see it. I don't see an instance where this would be like, oh yeah, go do that. Nah.
one of my favorite things, and James, you could speak to this obviously much better than I can, but one of my favorite things to see at times is at the ends of games in the NBA when players break the code, making plays near the ends of games that the other team doesn't appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, and as a referee, you just got to have situational awareness and kind of try your best to prevent it from turning into something really bad.
Yeah,
Because when people take offense, then that's when stuff happens.
yeah,
We don't, as referees, we don't get to interpret whether or not you should take a shot or not. That's that's not our role. That's if you're up 20 and you want to shoot it, we have nothing to do with that. Obviously, we just want to make sure we try to keep the peace. If you see someone doing something that violates the unwritten rules of whatever sport you officiate, like I'm going to try to get between, if Milton's up 20 with 8 seconds left and he takes a shot, I'm going to try to position myself between Milton and the other team if I see
yeah,
people coming, and try to nip it in the bud to the best of my ability. But
yeah,
as far as our job's concerned, we have nothing to do with these unwritten rules of baseball, hockey, football, basketball. It's up to the players and the teams and the coaches to
yeah.
determine how they want to approach that and how they want to deal with that.
Yeah. You know the crazy thing about that rule is that it's one sided. Because you want, as a coach, you would want your team to continue competing until the buzzer sounds, but offensively, you don't want to compete until the buzzer sounds. So I've never understood that unwritten rule, and I get it, respecting your opponent, but at the same time, we're competing. We're competing. I'm trying to beat you. You're trying to beat me, and I feel like when the buzzer sounds, that's when the game is over, in my opinion. So I never understood that.
Yeah, and you see and it's the referee's role to try to keep the peace
Yeah.
so that final horn does go off. But
Zion Williamson did something like that. I think it was last year, either last year or the year before. And I think I forgot who it was against, but yeah, it almost got tricky out there.
it's always been a topic of debate, and
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's ever going to convince the other side of how their
yeah,
viewpoint,
for sure.
because there's validity to both sides. I think that's why
Yeah,
there'll never be an answer to the question,
Yeah.
yeah,
because both sides make valid points.
yeah,
Um, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point, and maybe a topic for another day is this past season in the NBA with the in-season tournament and the impact of margin on how the in-season tournament moved forward. That created some interesting conditions in late in games, and then
yeah.
that was kind of interesting, but probably a topic for another day. Let's look at a little bit more basketball before we head out for the day. With court views, we really want to help you as a player think about how to apply your skill and your rule IQ of the game to be the best you can at your craft. And so what I thought we could do in with this play and with the next one is look at some of the finer details. The two things I'm interested in here is first the footwork at the handoff here from number 4. And we've talked a little bit about footwork, but just bringing it again from the referee's perspective, what are we looking at here? If the footwork is legal, and it might be, just what are the things that we want to really make sure that we don't do as a player to avoid needless violations. And then we see the jump shot near the end of this play. Wanted to talk a little bit about uh, the legality of the defense on this play, whether the shooter is selling the contact a bit, and what advice we might have for both the defender and for the shooter on the play. But maybe first we just can look here on that handoff there. Is that footwork? Does he shuffle his feet a little bit before dribbling? Also, if he does move his feet slightly, is it enough for it to really be a travel? Was As a fan, I was having a hard time putting that together.
It looks like he caught the ball right foot, hopped on his right foot again, then went left right. So technically, I would say that it was a travel. Yeah, on the handoff. But it depends on when they deemed him to have control of the basketball. But that
Yeah.
looks like before he even started the dribble, it looked like he traveled
What do you see on that play, James?
right, left, right. Good gracious.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly one where if you're going to break it down frame by frame,
Yeah,
it's technically yes a travel,
yeah,
and that's frame by frame, and that's I try to tell people and remind people that's not how the game is played. The game is not played, it's not coached, it's not officiated in slow motion,
yeah,
um, and so you know technically, it's a travel, but it's very hard to see that in live speed because it's all about the rhythm of how he just comes off, and he's really establishing his left foot as his pivot right here, and then he just dribbles. It I can understand why they don't call this a travel because that type of play happens 187 times in a
yeah,
game, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so we have purists out there that say, well, foul's a foul, a violation is a violation.
yeah,
And I always use the analogy of the police officer, right? You're sitting. I'm sitting in my spot. I know Milton drives by this spot every day, and I'm sitting in my spot and I'm clocking him. And that speed limit on that road is 45. And every time Milton drives by, he's doing 48. You, as the arbiter, have to make a decision. Is that enough to give him a violation and a ticket? Now, I can guarantee you what Milton would say if I pulled him over and I said, I caught you doing 48 and 45. There's not one rational, normal person on earth that would say, okay, yeah, I completely understand. I deserve this $200 ticket,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
They're like, are you kidding me? You're pulling me over for going 3 miles over the limit. And so you have to be able to distinguish between marginal and illegal. And that's why we talk about basketball having so much gray.
Hmm.
That footwork is gray, go either way. But if you're going to call it, if we're going to call it, now we have to be consistent on both ends of the
Consistent with
court
it. Yeah,
with
yeah,
that footwork. And
yeah,
now we're going to have 78 travels in this game.
yeah.
Doesn't really make for free flowing.
Right.
And so people think that because you don't, it's not to the letter of the law that it's cheating. That's where you lose people who aren't trained
Yeah,
about, they just think if it's by the letter of the law, if it says 45, then anything over 45 should be penalized.
yeah,
We know for a fact that that's not the way it works at all. So you want to call the obvious violations the obvious fouls. I'm okay with this footwork here. So as far as the shot's concerned, you're having to referee that defender. Don't referee, don't look at the kid shooting the ball. Don't look at him. Look at 23 on the closeout. And he closes out to the right of the shooter who feels a little contact as he's coming down and then he sits down. I think this is a good no call. This is what you want to teach them how to close out to the side
yeah,
of the shooter.
yeah,
Not because again, with every shot, there's going to be normal drift forward. So you're putting yourself in harm's way if you're closing out to the front of the shooter. But he closes out to the shooter's right side, and I think he's giving him the ability to land back safely to the floor. So I see
Yeah.
the no call of the jump shot as a good decision.
Yeah. And let's just a little pushback on the footwork part. So let's say every time or the majority of the time there's a dribble handoff, that same exact footwork that's technically illegal is done. Like how do you
Where's the
how
line?
do you how do you go about that?
What do you mean?
As far as like on the handoff right there. So that is just so it's technically illegal, and if it happens once or twice, cool. If it happens 15 to 20 times, is it still the same thing?
Well, again, you're setting a precedent with your decision,
Yeah,
and you don't want to change your precedent in the middle of the game,
gotcha.
right? If I've
Yeah,
said 47 is okay
yeah.
at 2:11 in the first half,
Hmm.
I can't at 2:11 of the second half say 47 is no longer okay.
Yeah.
The
So
question. Oh,
not even just the same game. Let's say just even moving forward. So then it's just a game by game basis when it comes to that footwork, or is it just
Sure, it's a game by game.
yeah,
Well, because I mean, you're going to have different referees and they see it
yeah,
differently, right? Just like you would
yeah,
have in any job. Like, I think people say, oh, well, this is very nuanced. This is
yeah,
very, very nuanced.
yeah,
And we are not all going to see the plays the same. And certainly, even though we're all wearing the same shirts as referees, what I see is different than what Sony may see, and what's going to be different than what you see. When the play's gray,
yeah,
it's there's not a definitive answer one way or the other. Like that type of dribble handoff right there, when Ford gets the ball, that happens so many times in a game. I mean,
yeah,
and I don't think I've really ever seen it called a travel.
yeah,
So, and there's a reason why, because it's not obvious and overt. It's like, it's close. But that's why it's not obvious and overt. We always say in officiating, call the elephants, call the things that are clear, obvious, they stand out to everyone, and leave the ants alone. The ones that, you got to get down with a magnifying glass to see, or you got to slow the tape down to 1/1000th of a second in order to
yeah,
see what you saw to justify calling what you called. If I
yeah,
have to slow a film down to 1/1000th of a second to see if that's footwork is good or not, then I've already got my answer on the play, which is I shouldn't be calling it.
yeah,
But if I look at it in live speed one time and say, oh yeah, that's a travel, then those are the ones we want to get. But
yeah,
what this young man did, I've I've seen that a million times in a basketball game.
yeah,
And out of those millions, I've never probably seen it called a travel.
for
I'd
sure.
actually be shocked if people did call that a travel. Be like,
Yeah.
whoa. Uh,
So I'm just trying to figure out from my perspective, how do I train my guys? So do I just tell them that's okay because it's not called, and then what if it is called? So it's just like that's why I just try to stick to teaching by the rule as much as I can, because I want to try to alleviate them from any doubt, because that play right there, 100% is called on the high school level every time.
Sure. Well, in high
Um,
school, high school,
yeah,
we're talking about different
yeah,
levels of
yeah, different levels of it.
knowledge
So
and
right,
understanding, right?
right,
Um, so when in Rome do as Romans. So if they are calling it, then you have to make the adjustment as an offensive player,
for
as a
sure,
ball handler. Then you have to
for
make
sure,
the adjustment.
for
Um,
sure.
because again, they're different levels of experience and understanding and decision making.
Yeah,
Um, So if they're saying at your level, your local level, high school, JV, that these are travels, then you're going to have to adjust. Which means when you come off of that dribble handoff, you have to know how many steps you're allowed to come to a stop.
right.
And in the NBA, if you get a pass, that's the pass. You're allowed 2 steps to come to a stop. I have no idea what it is in high school.
Yeah,
So, if you're only allowed one, then you got to make sure you take that one and come to a
Yep.
stop.
Yep.
But it's these plays are what we call tight. That's so tight
Yep.
that I wouldn't want to interrupt the flow of the game on something that tight
For sure.
that really happens 156 times in the course of a 40-minute game.
For sure. And I agree with you too. I don't believe that should be called, but at the same time too, I just want to just get a little bit of clarity as far as just the other points that I wanted to ask you about. That's all.
Yeah, and if we're calling it, then it's the onus is on us to continue to be consistent with that type
Yep.
of play throughout the game, right?
Definitely.
And that's how
Yep.
we are being fair to both teams. If
Yep.
we called it one way against Butler here, we got to make sure we're doing the same thing when Marquette does a dribble handoff.
Right.
And so at least in that sense, both teams can have a sense of fairness. They think they're both getting a fair shot because the precedent is the same on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we're trying to do at Court Views, right? We're trying
Yeah.
to have these types of conversations, sharing different perspectives. And I love this dialogue from both of you about,
Yeah.
well, hey, as a trainer, how do I train and develop my guys and girls? And from your perspective, James, how do I, as an official, or how do I work with my crew, or how do I instruct younger officials and guide younger officials on how to handle plays like this? So really,
Yep.
really neat conversation.
Definitely.
Let's look at one more play. And it's another college play from a few weeks ago, UCF versus BYU. And what I thought was interesting here, it's not that there is a foul or an obvious, like a bad no call or anything like that. It's just the conversation around these types of plays happen numerous times in a game, especially this type of drive, this baseline drive, and you see the uh, player going into a couple of defenders on that drive along the left side baseline. And the conversation I wanted to have was around how contact is officiated, because we also know one thing I've learned from James is that just because there's contact on a play doesn't mean that it's illegal contact.
Right.
But how does contact, how does physicality around the rim, how is it officiated? How is that dependent on the positioning and the coverage area of the different referees on the crew? And what advice then do we have for players to get what they really want out of this play? Maybe James, first, starting with you, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the lead official on the baseline and the center or the slot official down along the sideline on the bottom of the screen there, and what their roles are in terms of officiating this play on the drive.
So, well, this is actually it's very complicated, way more complicated than people think. On this drive, this baseline drive, this you see how initially the slot we call it the slot in the NBA, they call it center in college and high school. The person there at the free throw line, you see how his head immediately goes down to the dribbler's feet when he catches the ball. Just watch his head when he catches the ball here in the corner or right here. His head's gonna go down.
Yep.
See, so his head went down because he's looking at the feet. That's the start of, is the ball released? What's the pivot? And then once we get with that, now we got to quickly go to the defender. So in this case, it was Zero who closed out and immediately went by the offensive player. So once that play's over, Zero's out of this play now. Now the slot / center official has to try to find the next defender in white who's going to rotate over to help. And so lead here is responsible for 50, the big guy. He should be watching 50 as this play develops, because here comes 50 to defend, right? And he's really going to be looking to see if that defender jumps vertical. That's what his responsibility is. It would be very hard for him to see on that side of the rim if 50 reaches down with that right hand and makes illegal contact. That's a view that we call closed. He doesn't have a look to be able to see that. And so the one that can actually help us with that is, again, the farthest official away. That's the person in the trail. When this play stops, we're right there at the rim. Trail would have the best look to see if the defender, when he reaches, does he reach down and make illegal contact, or does he reach down and miss? And so the lead is going to see A to B movement. Is this guy jumping forward? If he's not, if he's pretty vertical, legal. If he goes A to B, makes contact with the dribbler, defensive foul. The trail will be in help mode for the right hand of 50. Does he reach and hit the shooter on his arm? So you see, in just that one clip, there's so many different things that we have to be responsible for, and you
It's a
also
lot.
there's a lot going on, and you also have 20
Ooh,
rotating over as well. So
right
20 rotates over as well. Here he comes right now,
There.
and
Yep.
so in officiating, if you catch defenders late, that means you're not seeing all the play. You're just seeing a really small portion of it. If you have to hope someone else on the floor saw that defender longer than you, because otherwise for you it becomes a guess. And so if the center can get to 20 in time, great. But he's having to scan his eyes from 0 to who's the next defender. 50 and 20 are our two options here. And now we have to referee the legality of those two defenders. Clearly 20 just goes by him. The question is all about really 50 on this play. Lead
Yeah.
can help with legality, verticality or not. Trail can help with what we call the re-reach. Does he reach down and make illegal contact to the arm? That's a very hard look for the official on the baseline to see, because he's behind 50. When 50 goes to jump, the lead official on the baseline is basically behind him. So he can't see the front side of when he reaches down. The official out at the top of the key there at the 28-foot mark would have a better view of that.
Yeah. And from my perspective, just from a player development perspective, pump fake, you're in the open area, shoot the basketball.
Pull
You're
up.
right there, pull
It's
up,
simple.
one dribble, pull up. Like, I mean, it can't be more open than that one dribble right there.
Yep.
And then you drove in the paint where it's crowded, where it's a big guy. Yeah,
That's a really
I would take that pull up.
It's a really good point, Milton, and part of why this type of discussion at court views is so interesting, because we're trying to talk about, as a player, understanding how the game is officiated to give yourself the highest percentage play possible. And
Definitely.
James, I've looked at a lot of film with you for the past year. I would say that this is like you said, it's a very complex play mechanically, because there's a lot of trust that the whole crew has to operate on, because the default coverage actually is a bit different here, and it becomes very much, as the play develops, about who has the open look, and who really has the open look here is actually quite sophisticated, and it's very challenging for a crew to consistently get these plays right. You have to have really good officials working as a team, right?
Yeah. I mean, on this one play, there's probably 12 decisions being made by the crew. Is that a travel? That's number one. On this handoff, is this an illegal screen? That's number two. Is that an illegal screen by 21? That's number three. The closeout by 0-4. Here comes 20. That's 5. Legality of number 50. That's 6. These are all decisions you're having to make in real time. And you didn't blow your whistle one time on this play, but as a crew, we've made 7 or 8 decisions.
And
Yeesh.
therefore, if as a player, what I'm trying to get out of this drive is, either a closer look at the basket or some contact or push out to an open shooter,
Yep.
I've got to be aware of how likely am I to get the call that I really want to get if I make a drive here. Now, of course, if it's clear and obvious and there's a slap and there's a foul, obviously, then the call gets made. But it is very hard in that sea of bodies at that angle. It's going to be very hard to get a call that you might want to get. And so in this case, like you said, Milton, I think the play here is that one step and just pull up for the shot. You have that open space.
That's it.
Yeah.
I wish we could do
Yeah.
pause on this, because the more I look at this thing, there's 9 decisions that must be made on this one sequence by the 3 officials. 9 that I've counted. And so when it starts from the beginning, I'm going to quickly go through them. 1, is that a travel? Number 2, is that a travel? 3, is that an illegal screen? 4, is that an illegal screen? 5, is that a travel? Closeout 6, 27, 58. And then the rebounder on the backside, is he holding black so that he can't get to the rebound? That's number 9.
Yeah.
Right there at the end.
And there's
It's
10
all
also.
those.
10 is also does his left foot go out of balance but right before the
Oh
drive?
yeah, on the punt foot, on the punt
Yeah,
fake.
There.
so there you go. 10 decisions
Yep.
That's tough,
that were
man.
made, and about 10 decisions that must be made in about a 12-second, 10-second span. One possession. You take, I would say in a college game, I don't know, maybe there's a total of 120 possessions, 60 shots each, 50 shots each. I say it's 50 for the sake of math, which I was sucked at. So 50 each, 50 shots, 50 possessions. That's 100 times 10. What's that? 1,000?
Dear Lord.
Yeah, it's
Decisions.
craziness, man.
So
Crazy.
I love this conversation, and we want to have more of this, right? We're really getting deep into the layers of the game, and we want to help you as players and as coaches, really understand the game from the referee's perspective as well, so that you can make better decisions and get what you want out of a play, right? Awesome.
Maybe not so much just get what you want, but just to be a more knowledgeable player.
Right. Understanding.
Understanding the game through a different lens. We talk all the time about the people who know the rules to the game know how to use those rules to their advantage.
Their advantage, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Using it to your advantage to get what you want out
Right.
of the play. Come on now.
Right. Well, but I mean, it's like it's sure. I go with that. But I guess I was looking at it for just like, I need to know if I'm on offense, what I'm allowed to do. If I'm on defense, what I'm allowed to do. I guess to your point, get what you want out of the play. Like if I'm 50 there, and I've got 4 fouls, and this is one of the last plays of the games, or I know I have to jump vertically and I have to show my hands vertical, and then hopefully we as the referees will make the right judgment on that as it relates to the rules, because you can do something right as a player and you were 100% right, but we still miss it and we call a foul. That's part of the game, but we want to try to minimize those things, and certainly more educated players who have higher rule IQ. We talk about players having great basketball IQ. If you have good rule IQ, that just helps complement your basketball IQ, which makes you even more of a dominance on the floor.
Yeah, Milton, I think I won't use orthodox or traditional. I'll say a common piece of advice that players might get from their coaches or from developers, trainers like you, is to get the ball to the rack, force a decision, force some contact, get to the free throw line. And what we're looking at with a play like this is calling contact on a play like that is going to be very complicated because of the angles. You might get a referee have an open look. You might be asking a referee to guess on a not good look. And if you're hoping for a referee to guess, which is something that they should do as little as possible, they should minimize, as James said earlier, then your strategy is more based on hoping, right? And if you're going to take the philosophy of I'm going to try to create a legal contact at the rim, I'm going to try to get to the foul line, just being very thoughtful about the right opportunities to do that, and doing it when you're in more of a position to be able to get that call.
Right. And then sometimes it's just patience too. I think he attacked really quickly. So it's like he didn't even allow 20 to respond to him. If he would have slowed down on step 1 and maybe slowed down on step 2, maybe it would have been different. He would have saw a different play. Rather than just finishing, he could have seen a kick out to the wing, a kick out to the corner, kick out to the top of the key, or find a cutter that's cutting back door as well. So being patient sometimes helps a lot as well. When you're
you draw 50 and then you lob it to your team.
50, lob it to the big guy.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you drew the defender.
That's it.
Now, because you can, we call it recall. I can see the play in my head.
Yep.
You know, the defender helping off the short corner wasn't there, so it would have been an easy lob and a dunk.
Yep. That's it. That's it. That's it. But like sometimes the play, like when you drive the basketball, the play is not always for you. It's not always for you to score. You know what I mean? I think that separates really good players from average players.
I love this. This has been a lot of fun. Doing 2 podcasts in one day and only recording one of them has been great.
Yeah.
I appreciate, as you said before, your graciousness with this. Those of you that have been listening, we really appreciate that too, for checking out Court Views. We ask you to share your feedback. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, because we're in this for the long run. We're going to keep cranking this out and keep getting better. So we really appreciate you coming along for the ride and learning with us. Share your plays. You already do that quite a bit. Continue to share your plays. If you see a traveling play with someone with bright colored sneakers, definitely share that. But share your other plays as well. And we don't want to just look at travel all day either. We want to look at other types of plays. Show us some blocking or charging plays. Show us some goaltending or basket interference. We want to see a healthy diet of different plays. And finally, spread the word. Follow us. Check it out. Share it with other people that love hoops, that want to take their knowledge of the games to the next level. Invite them to join the conversation as well. Final takeaways, Milton and then James.
Just thank you guys for tuning in, man. I'm appreciative to be here. I'm here to learn and grow as well. I don't feel like I'm ever gonna be a finished product. I'm always learning every day. So I'm just grateful to be here with you guys and learn and help other people learn, man. I think that's what it's all about, sharing all that knowledge and information that we learned over our years and passing it down to the next generation in hopes that they take with it and run off and do the same for the generation after them. So, yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank y'all for watching.
James?
Yeah, my takeaway is that when I start seeing gymnastics on a basketball court, I know that that's the good Lord telling me it's my time to go. It's been a great ride. Pass the baton to the next officials. So, but no, just we're just trying to have healthy, conversations. Try to help people understand a little bit more about refereeing. Try to help players, coaches get a little bit better understanding of you know how based on angles, based on positioning, based on location of the ball, all of these things change as to what officials are looking at and what they're responsible for. So there's a lot that goes into it. I think that last play was a great illustration. We said 10 decisions on one sequence, 10 that the referees had to make. And so, it gives you kind of some insights into just how many decisions are made in a game on a nightly basis, most of which have no whistle to them, right? There were 10 decisions there, 0 whistles. So that's the nature of the job. There's the nature of the game. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of things that are 50-50. And so hopefully we can help you learn a little bit more about the game from a referee perspective. And, like Milton said, we're all just trying to grow. We're all just trying to get better. Nobody's a finished product, whether you're a coach, player, fan, referee. We're all just trying to be better today than we were yesterday. So thank you for checking it out. Hope to see you on the next one.
Very serious today. Very serious. I like that. Very professional. What I really enjoyed about talking with both of you was your humility you bring. You both are incredibly accomplished with tremendous experience in your respective domains, both with the ability to say, I'm not sure about that one, or yeah, that's something new. I've got to learn that.
Yeah.
That is really, really awesome. Hats off to both of you on that, and that we can have discussion where we're not just all agreeing on it either, where we're actually bringing
Yeah.
our different court views to the discussion. So see what I did there like that? Thank you again, gentlemen, and our audience. Remember, send your feedback, share your play, spread the word. Along with Milton and James, I am Sony with the Court Views podcast. Thanks again for checking it out. We'll see you next time.